There's four people you have to forgive in life. There's your parents, living or dead, for every mistake they ever made in bringing you up. There's the second people from marriages or relationships that didn't work out. You have to forgive everyone else in your life who has ever hurt you in any way. And the fourth and final person is yourself. Mm. Is there any way that you apply that to, like, looking back on your life? Is there any way that you apply that to, or you're able to, like, kind of relate to that?
So, I have, four amazing children, right? From 28 to 19. I had a failed marriage. A lot of things, you look back on in hindsight, a large part of that failure. I mean, no one person's responsible for the failure of any, for a relationship, right? I certainly had my part in why that relationship broke down. And so, through the process of, pretty lengthy marriage ending, and also trying to reconcile those challenges or deal with those challenges, that how that's impacted your kids and your family and so forth. That was about the time where, and this is an interesting segue, where my spiritual life really started to take off. And I was struggling. I was struggling with forgiving, being forgiven, forgiving myself. And I say all that because when you're talking about forgiveness, the hardest thing that I had to deal with, I thought, what really was the forgiveness of self. And it was made very clear to me that, based on my belief system, that I was already forgiven. You should go ask for forgiveness from the person that, for your role in the dissolution of this relationship. You should ask for forgiveness for your role in the breakdown of that, which I did. But it was also made clear to me, you may not get it. You may not get what you're looking for, but that's okay, because your heart has moved in the right direction. Even though now I know I don't need to beat myself up about it, sometimes I still do, because of the impact that event, for lack of a better word, what the ripple effect of that was to people that you care about.
Yeah. What about, I don't know if this is the best word, but what about closure? Like having, maybe on the emotional side, just you're trying to forgive yourself, you're maybe trying to forgive someone else, but like you said, that sometimes when you're talking to that person, you don't get what you're looking for. You're not getting that, like, the closure of either the relationship or that conversation, or something that's like, there's still something I want to say or something I want to get from them. How do you deal with that lack of closure?
Well, there's just some things you may never get, and that's okay, right? Because what I have learned is, I may not get what I want. I've had in different closures. I mean, both my parents are gone, right? So I've had, you have to deal with the closure of things maybe you wish you would have said or did, or experienced maybe you wish you would have had and didn't, and so forth. You can't beat yourself up about that, right? You have to accept that if you've done what you can do to get the closure you're hoping for, but the answer or lack of answer in what you're seeking doesn't give you 100% closure, well, then you have it. You have closure. It's just not maybe exactly the way you hoped it would have worked out.
So it's not the glass is half full or half empty. It's just fill it up with something new, something that gives you that fulfillment.
Yeah. I mean, or you know what, or get a new glass.
Is there any way that you try to seek out the joy over the temporary happiness?
Going back to the discipline question, right? My daily discipline throughout in my job, in my career, and the success that I'm able to achieve as a result of that, provides me the opportunity to seek joy, right? So now I have flexibility that, whatever degree of financial flexibility I have, right? But I can do things with people that I care about, that are joyful. I can spend time, getting back on the baseball field, which will give me joy. I can spend time with kids. I can pour into an organization like Skull Games and try to build something that's meaningful to them. Those are things that bring joy. The happiness is the day-to-day stuff, right? A successful client closing. I mean, life's transactions, the good life's transactions are happy things. My daughter's getting married at the end of April. That's joy, right? All the little, getting together for dinner and talking about her planning, and then she's got her flowers done and all this kind of stuff. That's happy. It's all that will culminate into something joyful.
What about the emotional attachment conflict? Like when you have maybe just a downtime, or like you're not as happy as you usually are, and you go to something that you are happy with to get you back up. Is there do you try to separate that attachment, that this is something that I love to do and I'm coming in with a not so happy attitude? And then every time you go back into that, you have that, like, it's starting to sap away the happiness that you get, that joy that you get from going to that original thing.
You try to disassociate those things as quickly as you can. It's late in the day and I just had a not so happy interaction with someone, right? A referral partner's bothered by something, a client's upset about, whatever. I mean, those things happen, right? And then my daughter calls on FaceTime from school, right? And like, oh, okay. Now, I always want to take her call when she calls. So pushing that down, I'm, as I mentioned before, I'm good at pushing things down when I'm not, when something is bothering me. But to try to flip those emotions and not pour into her based on using that example, I don't want to pour into her because in a negative way, because at the end of the day, what I know, and I think it's subconscious, none of that, nothing that happens in my day to day, is negative enough. It doesn't matter, right? I'll go on to tomorrow. I'll be over that in 15 minutes.
So you've gotten to the point where you can easily just let go of whatever it is. Just not even like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just instantly let go of something. And then I guess kind of what Dave talked about, just set aside for later. Like you can deal with it later.
I'll deal with it as long as it's something that's not emergent. That is something that is hard. It is hard for me to do. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's something I've learned to do because I'm the guy who, like, if you're going to ask friends of mine, people who know me the closest, like, okay, what's Mark's OCD? I hate seeing badges on my phone. Like the hardest thing for me to do is look and see I have a text or an email and not check it, just to clear it. And if it's something that needs a response, particularly if it's work related, I'll want to respond to it. Well, the problem with that is I now create an expectation for people who I'm responding to that I'm available at any time, at any day, right? That's something I'm still working to try to overcome because that really impacts that kind of work life.
Then would you add the honesty to that? That, like, yes, sometimes you'll get an instant message from me. Other times it will be maybe 2 hours.
If the response is, well, I realize it's 9:00 on a Monday night, but I need the answer now, then I have to be okay with the response that may be, well, unfortunately, I can't do that for you. And if you need to find somebody else, that's perfectly fine, right? I have to be willing to let that go because the deal's not worth it, right? And what you tend to find is people in general who have those type of demands from the very beginning, what they say, like the 80-20 rule, like you'll spend 80% of your time on 20% of your clients.
It's almost like in order to give someone a lot of value, give clients, relationships, family, God, what if in church, is that time delay. On one hand, you need to give it value for the people that it's involved, but on the other hand, you also give it to yourself.
I look at that the same way as I do, with relationships outside of work, right? How am I creating value in relationships with friends, family, nonprofits, and so forth? Am I giving the best version of myself to improve the lives of the people that I care about, the people that I interact with, right? And then I don't know what the measure of that improvement is, right? Are they happy to be around me? Are my kids better off today than they were yesterday?
I think that's probably the worst part of anything, is that you won't be able to see the results now. You plant the seed today, you don't know if that tree is going to grow up or it's going to die off early on. You just have to wait and see, or at least in my opinion, you just have to.
No, you're right, particularly your kids, because they're the ones you have the ability to have the biggest influence on. They'll do something, say something maybe even employ something in their daily life that you're pretty confident is a result of something that you've encouraged them to do.
What about the times when your kids do something that you know you never taught them? And it's like it's either a good thing or a bad thing, or both things. If it's a good thing but you never taught them, or it's a bad thing and you never taught them. How do you approach both situations?
You hope that they are surrounding themselves with other good people to keep them from doing the bad things, and to hopefully help them be better rounded people to teach them good things that maybe I never did. The bad things are tough because, this goes back to the failure part of it again. They are going to make mistakes. I mean, there are certainly things that have happened, decisions, relationships, failed relationships over the years. I could look at my oldest daughter, for instance, before she found her fiance, and be like, what did you see in that guy? I mean, there's nothing redeemable about this person. Like, what were you thinking? Right. But they have to go down a path, and they have to go down that path and let those things happen so they don't happen again. As long as they're not life-threatening or would potentially hurt or damage somebody or something else, it's all okay. Because in that example, she's better as a result of it.
Yeah. So you don't shape your kids to be replicas of you. You shape them to become people who will be self-sustainable.
Oh goodness, I don't want them to be replicas of me. That's the whole thing, going back to the Oscar Wilde quote, right? I want them all to be themselves, and they all have their own unique personalities. I want them to have hopefully learned from my mistakes as well as their own, become better as a result of it, know the things that they don't want, good and bad from both their mom and dad, that they can pull into their own lives and say, okay, I want to be like dad because of these things. I don't want to be like dad because of these things. Right. They will, all four of them will be way better versions of themselves than I could have ever been of myself.